Claire Thompson's Saturday morning started like any other. But the moment she tried to start her car, she knew it wouldn't be ordinary. She turned the key, heard a tired groan from the engine, and then nothing. Her heart sank. It wasn't just about being late for errands. This car was her independence, her freedom, the thing that kept her from feeling trapped at home. She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, taking a deep breath, feeling the tension of the past week weighing heavily on her shoulders. Work had been relentless, emails never ending, deadlines looming. And her stepson Ryan's school projects and after-school activities had left her constantly juggling responsibilities. Her life felt like a tightrope walk. And now, with the car refusing to cooperate, she teetered dangerously close to frustration. Claire stepped out of the car, her hands on her hips, glancing at the driveway and then down the quiet suburban street. She tried her phone, thinking to call a tow truck, but the battery was nearly dead, a reflection of how depleted she felt. Just as she exhaled a frustrated sigh, a shadow moved along the edge of her property. She turned to see Ethan Miller, Ryan's friend, walking up with casual confidence. He was a young man who lived nearby, well known for his skill with cars and his willingness to help friends and neighbors alike. His presence was unexpected and yet somehow comforting. "Hey, Claire. Looks like your car's not cooperating," he said with a friendly smile. There was a warmth in his voice, a lightness that seemed to brush away a bit of her stress. "Need a hand?" Claire blinked, surprised. She hesitated for a moment. She didn't want to impose. "Would you really help me?" she asked, her voice a little quieter than she intended. Ethan crouched down beside the car, opening his toolbox with methodical precision. He examined the engine, his hands moving skillfully over bolts and wires. There was something mesmerizing about the way he worked, focused, confident, patient. Claire found herself watching him, realizing that she had never noticed these small qualities before. His dedication and calm demeanor were magnetic in a subtle way. They began to talk while he worked. Ethan asked about Ryan, the school, and weekend plans. Claire laughed more freely than she had in weeks, appreciating the easy rhythm of their conversation. His humor was gentle, his questions sincere, and the way he listened made her feel acknowledged, understood. It was as if in these few moments the tension of her life eased. She felt lighter, happier, and for a fleeting moment, she forgot about all the obligations waiting for her inside the house as Ethan tinkered with the engine. Claire noticed herself stealing glances at him more often than necessary. There was something in the curve of his smile, the seriousness with which he handled even the simplest task, that stirred a strange warmth in her chest. It wasn't inappropriate, it was human, a reaction to witnessing genuine care and competence. She realized that this moment, this ordinary day, had unexpectedly become significant. Finally, the engine roared to life. Claire clapped her hands, the relief bubbling through her in a rush of excitement. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag, smiling with satisfaction. "Looks like we're back in business," he said, his eyes meeting hers briefly. The small spark of connection in that glance lingered longer than either of them expected. Claire's gratitude was immediate. "Thank you so much, Ethan. I really don't know what I would have done without you," she said, feeling her heart flutter with a strange mix of admiration and something she couldn't quite define. It wasn't just about the crit, it was about feeling seen, helped, and valued. Ethan smiled warmly. "Anytime, Claire. I'm just glad I could help." His tone was casual, but there was an ease between them, a subtle recognition of a shared human moment that transcended the mundane task of fixing a car. Feeling a surge of spontaneous warmth, Claire invited him inside for a glass of lemonade. It felt natural, almost necessary, as though the universe had nudged her toward this small connection that promised more than just practical assistance. They sat on the porch, sipping lemonade, sharing small stories and laughter. Claire felt a strange, comforting pull, a connection that was emotional rather than romantic. Yet it carried a quiet intensity. There was curiosity in her gaze, and perhaps in his, too, though neither dared to name it yet. The laughter faded into a comfortable silence, filled only with the sounds of birds chirping and the faint rustle of leaves. Claire's mind wandered, replaying moments from the day. She recognized a new feeling rising within her on, emotional spark she hadn't felt in a long time. It was gentle, intoxicating in its subtlety. The kind of thrill that comes not from scandal or excitement, but from human connection, empathy, and shared understanding. Just then, Ryan appeared, calling for Ethan to come play basketball with him in the yard. Ethan gave Claire a friendly wave and hurried off, leaving her on the porch alone with her thoughts. She felt a quiet longing, a recognition that something inside her had shifted. The ordinary act of helping her car had opened a door to an unexpected emotional resonance of feeling of being noticed, appreciated, and subtly drawn towards someone who genuinely cared. Claire remained on the porch long after Ethan left, staring at the now functioning car, feeling a mixture of gratitude and fascination. She wasn't entirely sure what this meant yet, but her heart felt lighter, her mind more alive. A tiny spark had been lit, a curiosity she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. It was a combination of excitement, anticipation, and the quiet wonder of realizing that life could surprise you in the most unexpected ways. As the day progressed, Claire found herself thinking about Ethan, replaying his smiles, his focus, and the ease of their conversation. Something about him lingered, not as a threat or temptation, but as a reminder of what it felt like to connect with another human being on a level that was simple, honest, and emotionally rich. She couldn't name it yet, but she felt a gentle thrill, the promise of something quietly transformative. By the evening, Claire realized that what started as a frustrating Saturday morning had become a pivotal moment of reflection. She had witnessed kindness, competence, and warmth in someone she knew only casually. And the impact it had on her emotional state was profound. It was a reminder that small gestures, shared laughter, and genuine attention could awaken feelings she had almost forgotten, the simple joy of being understood and seen. That night, as she prepared for bed, Claire replayed the morning over and over in her mind. She realized that while nothing had happened in a dramatic sense, something meaningful had occurred. A subtle emotional bond had been formed, a connection that was gentle, profound, and safe. It carried no scandal, no impropriety, only the thrill of being emotionally recognized. She smiled to herself, realizing that life had a way of offering small, unexpected gifts when she least expected them. And somewhere in her heart, she knew that this was only the beginning, quiet, emotional spark that would shape the coming days in ways she hadn't yet imagined. The next morning, Claire woke with a lingering sense of curiosity. The events of the previous day kept replaying in her mind the warmth of Ethan's smile, the ease of his conversation, and the quiet satisfaction of having her car fixed without a hitch. She felt an unexpected sense of anticipation, a subtle thrill that made her wonder if fate was nudging her towards something new, something emotionally significant. She tried to focus on her routine: breakfast, checking Ryan's schedule, and planning the day's errands. But the memory of Ethan's presence lingered. Like a gentle whisper she couldn't ignore, by mid-morning, Claire's phone rang. She nearly dropped it, heart skipping when she saw Ethan's name appear on the screen. "Hi, Ethan," she said, trying to sound casual despite her racing heart. "Hey, Claire," he replied, his voice calm and friendly. "I was thinking, if you don't mind, I could stop by and check your garage door. I noticed it was a little stiff yesterday. I wouldn't want it to give you trouble." Claire hesitated for a moment, then nodded, even though she knew he couldn't see her. "Sure, that would be great. Thank you." When Ethan arrived, he brought his usual calm energy with him. He moved around the garage, inspecting the mechanisms and tightening screws with precision. Claire watched from a distance, admiring his patience and skill. She realized that what fascinated her most wasn't just his competence, it was the care he put into everything he did. He noticed details she hadn't, small things that made a big difference. And he did it all without expecting praise. As he worked, they began to talk again, this time about lighter things. He asked about her favorite books, movies, and hobbies. Claire laughed freely, appreciating the ease of the conversation. There was no awkwardness, no pretense, just two people enjoying a shared moment. A simple human connection that was rare and precious. Each word he spoke seemed to carry a sense of understanding and respect, and she found herself leaning slightly toward him, drawn by the quiet charm of his personality. Suddenly, the conversation shifted when Ryan appeared, holding a basketball. "Ethan, come play with me," he shouted. Ethan gave Claire a warm smile and ruffled Ryan's hair before running off to the yard. Claire couldn't help but notice the way he interacted with Ryan, kind, playful, and attentive. It struck her that he wasn't just capable with tools. He had a gentle, thoughtful nature that extended to his relationships with others. It made her feel comfortable, safe, and oddly intrigued all at once. Once Ethan was outside with Ryan, Claire took a moment to reflect. She realized that she had begun to feel a connection that was deeper than mere gratitude. There was a subtle pull, an emotional curiosity, a longing to understand him better. It wasn't romantic in a conventional sense, there was no inappropriate tension, but it was compelling, like discovering a new layer of life she hadn't experienced in years. When Ethan returned to the garage, Ryan trailing behind him, he continued to work on the garage door with the same care and attention as before. Claire offered him coffee and they sat together at the small workbench, sipping from mugs as they discussed mundane topics that somehow felt profound in that quiet, focused atmosphere. The sound of the coffee warming their hands, the casual laughter, and the small exchanges of smiles created an intimacy that was emotionally stirring. Hours passed, and Claire realized that she had been thinking about Ethan more than she should have. There was a subtle tension within her, a question she didn't know how to answer. Was this just gratitude? Or was it the excitement of finding someone who truly saw her, appreciated her, and made her feel alive in ways she hadn't felt for years? The feelings were gentle, subtle, and entirely safe, but they carried a quiet intensity that she couldn't ignore. By late afternoon, the garage door was functioning perfectly. Ethan wiped his hands, smiling at Claire. "All done," he said. There was a satisfaction in his tone, not boastful, but quietly proud. Claire's chest lifted with gratitude and something more, something unnamed, but undeniable. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her voice carrying a warmth that surprised even her. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." Ethan's smile deepened, and there was a fleeting moment where their eyes met and held just a second longer than necessary. It wasn't suggestive or inappropriate, it was simply a human connection, a recognition of mutual respect, care, and the quiet thrill of being in each other's presence as the sun began to set. Ethan gathered his tools, preparing to leave. Claire walked him to the door, feeling a strange reluctance to let him go. "You're welcome any time," she said, her voice soft but genuine. "I'll remember that," he replied with a friendly nod, leaving her with a lingering sense of warmth and possibility after he left. Claire remained in the garage, running her hands along the now smooth garage door, feeling a quiet sense of satisfaction. The day had been ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in the emotional impact it had left on her. She realized that small moments, shared smiles, and genuine attention could awaken feelings she had thought long buried. That evening, as she sat down to dinner with Ryan, she found herself telling him stories about her day, subtly weaving in the presence of Ethan without exaggeration. Ryan listened eagerly, happy to have shared moments with his friend. Claire felt a sense of connection to both of them, a quiet emotional resonance that filled her heart with unexpected lightness. Later, as she prepared for bed, Claire reflected on the day's events. She recognized the subtle thrill that had emerged, not of romance in a dangerous sense, but of being noticed, appreciated, and understood. It was a reminder of the human need for connection, the quiet joy of shared understanding, and the emotional spark that could transform ordinary moments into something memorable. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about the coming days. She wondered if Ethan would come by again, and whether these small interactions would continue to shape her days in unexpected ways. The anticipation was gentle, like a quiet hum in her chest, but it was undeniably a sign that life had more to offer. Even in the midst of routine and responsibility, Claire drifted to sleep with a sense of contentment, a subtle emotional thrill that wasn't loud or dramatic, but persistent. It was a quiet acknowledgement that meaningful connections could arise when least expected, and that life had a way of offering unexpected gifts in the form of simple human kindness, competence, and attention. And in the soft darkness of her bedroom, she realized that the day's events had subtly changed her. She was more aware of emotional resonance, more attuned to the quiet sparks that life could provide, and more open to the possibilities that lay ahead. This was not just a story about a car or a garage. Dorit was a story about discovery, emotional awakening, and the gentle thrill of human connection that could grow into something beautiful over time. The quiet anticipation of seeing Ethan again filled her thoughts, not as an obsession, but as a gentle curiosity, a readiness for life's subtle surprises. She understood that emotional connections, even the simplest ones, could shape her world in profound ways. And she felt for the first time in a long while that she was ready to embrace those surprises with an open heart. The following morning, Clara woke with a quiet anticipation. Ethan's presence from the previous days lingered in her mind like a gentle hum, subtle yet persistent. She went about her routine, making breakfast for Ryan, tidying the kitchen, and checking emails, but every small noise, every ring of the phone, carried the possibility that he might appear again. There was an unusual excitement in her chest. Not romantic in an unsafe sense, but a deep emotional curiosity. A pull towards something unpredictable yet comforting by late morning. Claire's phone rang, and she smiled before even checking the screen. It was Ethan. "Hey, Claire," he said, friendly and calm. "I noticed your mailbox hinge is a bit loose. If you don't mind, I could stop by and fix it. I have a few spare minutes today." Claire hesitated for only a moment before responding. "That would be wonderful, Ethan. Thank you." Her words carried more warmth than she had intended, but she couldn't stop herself. There was a genuine comfort in his presence, a reassurance that small acts of attention and care could hold more meaning than she'd realized. When Ethan arrived, he greeted Ryan first, who ran up to him with a grin. Ethan knelt to ruffle his hair, and Ryan's laughter filled the room, creating a gentle, joyful atmosphere. Claire watched them, appreciating the way Ethan interacted with her son, not just friendly, but warm, patient, and genuinely caring. She realized again that his personality went beyond skill. It was the quiet thoughtfulness, the attention to detail, the human warmth that drew people toward him. Ethan moved to the mailbox, tools in hand, and Claire followed him outside, carrying a cup of coffee. She observed his focused movements, the way he worked with patience and precision. It wasn't just a task, it was a small act of dedication, and watching him, she felt a wave of admiration. The mundane had become extraordinary simply because he brought his full attention and care to it, while fixing the mailbox. They spoke about everyday things, the weather, neighborhood happenings, and the school schedule for Ryan. Their conversation was easy, flowing naturally, with moments of laughter that felt genuine and unforced. Claire noticed that being with Ethan didn't require pretense or performance. She could simply exist, speak, and share moments without worry. That in itself was rare. And it made the connection feel significant as the morning drifted into early afternoon. Ryan suggested they play a quick game of catch in the yard. Ethan agreed, smiling at Claire as he ran after the ball. Watching them interact, she felt a quiet warmth in her chest, a reassurance that kindness and genuine attention could create bonds stronger than words. She realized that her admiration for Ethan was not romantic in an unsafe sense. It was the emotional resonance of being seen, acknowledged, and appreciated. When the game ended, Ethan returned to the mailbox to put the finishing touches on his work. Claire approached him, coffee in hand, and offered it to him with a smile. He accepted, and for a few minutes they stood side by side, sipping quietly, sharing a moment of mutual respect and understanding. There was no inappropriate tension, only a sense of emotional closeness that was rare and valuable. As he finished, Ethan looked up and met Claire's gaze. There was a brief pause, a silent acknowledgement of the quiet connection they had formed. It was not about romance or attraction in a dangerous sense. It was about being fully present, being noticed, and appreciating someone's care. Claire felt a sense of contentment she hadn't experienced in years, a feeling that life could still offer meaningful, emotionally rich moments. Ethan gathered his tools and prepared to leave. Ryan waved energetically, and Claire smiled, feeling a mixture of gratitude and gentle anticipation. "Thank you, Ethan. You've done so much already. I don't know how we would manage without you," she said softly. "You're very welcome," he replied, smiling warmly. "I'm glad I could help. And it's been fun spending time with you and Ryan." After he left, Claire lingered by the mailbox, running her fingers along the smooth metal. The day had been ordinary in its activities, yet extraordinary in its emotional impact. She realized that simple acts of care, attentiveness, and shared moments could create a profound sense of connection. It was a lesson she hadn't expected to learn, that emotional fulfillment didn't always come from grand gestures, but from quiet, meaningful interactions. Later that afternoon, Claire helped Ryan with homework. She noticed his attention wandering occasionally toward the yard, likely replaying moments with Ethan. She smiled, recognizing the value of small joys and emotional bonds in shaping a child's perspective. She felt grateful for the presence of someone like Ethan in their lives, someone who brought warmth, skill, and genuine attention without expectation or judgment. As evening approached, Claire found herself reflecting on the past few days. She recognized a subtle shift within herself, an emotional awakening that had begun quietly but grown steadily. The thrill she felt wasn't romantic or dangerous. It was the realization that meaningful human connections could appear unexpectedly, enriching life in ways she had almost forgotten. She appreciated Ethan not for himself alone, but for what his presence had brought into her world: attention, care, laughter, and a reminder that small moments could hold extraordinary significance. That night, as she prepared dinner, Claire caught herself smiling at the memory of Ethan's calm demeanor, his gentle attentiveness, and the laughter shared with Ryan. She realized that she was more attuned to subtle emotional cues, more appreciative of everyday kindness, and more open to letting small joys shape her days. The mundane had become remarkable because she had noticed it, because she had allowed herself to feel and acknowledge it fully. After putting Ryan to bed, Claire sat alone for a while, sipping tea and thinking about the simple pleasures of the day: the shared laughter, the ease of conversation, the feeling of being seen. She understood that emotional fulfillment didn't require romance, drama, or extraordinary circumstances. Sometimes it came quietly in the form of shared moments, attentiveness, and genuine care from someone who valued presence over pretense. Claire drifted to sleep that night, feeling a sense of completeness. The events of the day had been ordinary yet profound, leaving her with a quiet satisfaction and a gentle emotional glow. She realized that life's unexpected connections could shift perspective, inspire gratitude, and awaken feelings of emotional richness she had thought lost to time. The next morning, she woke feeling refreshed and ready to embrace life's subtle surprises. She knew that Ethan would likely return at some point, and the anticipation itself was a quiet thrill, not of romance in a dangerous sense, but of human connection, care, and the joy of shared experiences. She felt prepared to continue appreciating the small moments that made life meaningful, to embrace gratitude, and to nurture emotional bonds that enriched both her and Ryan's lives over the next few weeks. Ethan's presence became a comforting routine. He would stop by for small tasks, share light-hearted conversations, and interact warmly with Ryan. Claire found herself looking forward to these moments, not because of romantic attraction, but because of the emotional resonance they carried. It was a gentle thrill, a reminder that life could still surprise with meaningful experiences, and that human connection, kindness, attentiveness, shared laughter could be as fulfilling as any grand adventure. One afternoon, as Claire watched Ethan and Ryan playing in the yard, she realized how much the quiet moments had shaped her perspective. She understood that true connection didn't always need grand gestures or dramatic events. It came from care, attention, and the willingness to be present. The warmth she felt in those interactions was a subtle, steady light that made her life richer and more emotionally satisfying. By the end of the month, Claire noticed a shift in herself. She was more patient, more appreciative of small gestures, and more attuned to the emotional nuances of everyday life. She recognized that meaningful connections could emerge unexpectedly, and that allowing herself to acknowledge and enjoy them did not compromise her integrity or her responsibilities. It simply made her more human, more aware, and more capable of joy. In the final moments of Part 3, Claire reflected on the journey she had experienced over the past days. From the simple act of having her car repaired to the small interactions with Ethan and Ryan, she realized that emotional connection could transform ordinary moments into extraordinary memories. She felt a sense of gratitude, not just for Ethan's presence, but for the lessons in attentiveness, care, and human warmth that had quietly reshaped her perspective. And as she drifted to sleep, she knew that life's subtle surprises, the laughter, the shared moments, the quiet attentiveness were far more meaningful than she had realized. She was awake to the gentle thrills of human connection, to the quiet excitement of shared joy, and to the realization that even small gestures could leave lasting emotional impact.